Welcome everybody, welcome to the channel. Now, if you're watching this video, you're obviously interested in what the title is. Now, the thumbnail is showing you what the product is. It's the insulating lining paper, and it's one of your wall rock products. It's from Earth, and it's the Mav stuff. Now, this is the lining paper that's got the polystyrene, which gives you extra warmth to your room. Now, I'm actually using, it's the Graphite Plus, which is a little bit more expensive than the ordinary polystyrene backed lining papers that you've probably seen before, or even in the range of products that Mav have got. But I'm in a room that it suffers from being cold. There's no damp, it just suffers from being cold. Now, this room previously has had the previous versions of this years ago put onto the surface on the walls. Not that wall, but the one behind me. I'll spin you around over there on the external walls. Now, I've come in because the customer just wants that little bit of extra warmth to the room, just to get that little bit more insulation on the walls. But instead of doing certain walls, I'm going to do all of it. I'm going to do the ceiling. I'm going to do these flanked sloping ceiling of the roof and just the short pieces across the bottom, and then clearly just around the doors and the wall. So all the room, all done in this. Now, you wanted to know a little bit about this product. I won't be showing you hanging it. I'll show you a couple of lengths to put on, but I won't be doing the whole room for you. We'll keep this under a 20-minute video. But we'll just go through the basics of this stuff. It's always read the instructions, always read the back of the labels. Always check that it's the right product for you. Now, what I'll be doing is hanging this to the walls. You don't have to worry too much about cross-lining or verticals or horizontals. Work out what will suit you best. Now, I know some of these walls have got like a lining paper on. I can see where the joints are, so clearly when this goes on, I will be doing it opposite. Red and gang, because I've got paint on my hands. I will be doing it opposite to whatever the joints are currently. Now, once this is on, I'll be going over with a reinforced lining paper. Now, you can use wall rock fibre liner if you so wish, but I will be using the Albany reinforced lining paper. Now, there's a video there if you want to see about that, but also following on, there'll probably be a video there showing you the wall rock version. Very much the same sort of product, one's thinner, one's thicker. You can get wall rock actually in wider lengths, so it's whatever suits your needs. But what the idea is, you put this stuff on and then you line over the top. Now, it's advised to go over with a wall rock fibre liner. The Albany reinforced lining paper is very much similar, so I'm going to be using that. I'm going to say today, it won't be today, will it? It's going to be in a couple of days' time. But hanging actually this product, you need to use... hanging this product, you need to use the correct adhesive for it, and this is the wall rock thermal adhesive. You apply this to the wall with a liberal coat, and you literally hang this to the wall with the polystyrene side against the wall, and you can see that graphite colour to it. Now, once you've got it on, you do the usual. You can hang off the wall. You can hang off the roll. If you want to pre-cut your lengths, you can do, but sometimes it is easier to hang as it comes off the roll. Allow a little bit of overlap top, trim it with a knife, cut it at the bottom, squeegee it with a spatula, like that, to get it down. Don't worry too much if you get some gaps because of the way the paper wants to go on the wall, because if you do get little gaps in this, because you do butt joint, use some flexible filler. I've got some of the lightweight Prestonet. Can you see it? Lightweight filler. You can use anything like that just to fill any gaps that you've got. The same applies to any joints and angles that you might come up against the corners. You can use flexible cork. You can also use some more of that flexible filler and get it on and just neaten it. Don't worry too much. Don't overthink it. Please don't overthink it. But once that's all dry and nicely on, then you can do your lining papers over the top. If you do want to use an ordinary lining paper, you could so do. But as I say, I'm going to be using a reinforced lining paper. Now, what you've got to be bearing in mind, if you are using this with some of the other products that are the fire rated lining papers, make sure you read the instructions, because this needs to be hung the other way round. It to be that surface against the wall, and that would be on the outside. You've got to use the fire rated thermal well, you've got to use the correct adhesive, and it is the one that's the FR fire rated adhesive to use in conjunction with it. But as I say, please read the instructions, because I can only tell you so much, but sometimes it's easy to read the instructions and it actually soaks into the brain a little bit better. But saying that, I don't think there's anything much more to say about that, other than once you've got this on, because it is one of these products that needs to dry naturally, i.e. don't overheat the room, don't try and get the heating on to try and dry it quicker. It says work over this after 48 hours. Now that's what I'll be doing. I'll be getting this on, then I'll be waiting, and then I'll be putting the lining paper over the top. Once I've got that lining paper, the reinforced lining paper on it, I will be painting this room just with ordinary durable matte emulsion. Again, don't overthink it. You can just go straight on and you can paint it as normal, like you would do over any other normal lining paper. But saying that, I'm going to crack on with this now. I'll probably show you down in this corner, and away we'll go. Now, some people are going to say to me, do you size the wall? Do you need to put anything over the surface? Clearly, if you were going over a surface that was porous, this isn't a porous surface. This has been painted with vinyl mats before, so it isn't. I'll do the finger test. Put it on the surface. It is, look at your finger, put it on the surface. It isn't soaking in any more than what I would expect. You are actually applying this adhesive straight to the wall with a liberal coating, and it shouldn't really need sizing. If you are going over a stripped out room that the walls are plastered, it might be an idea just to thin down some of this adhesive, just thin it slightly, put it onto the surface and use it as a size. But again, if in doubt, you can always ring this phone number's on the wrappers. Oh, well, this phone number's on the labels. If in doubt, you can always speak to technical. But for me, I don't need to be sizing this because these walls aren't a porous surface. They're good to go. What I have done though, I have checked around to see if there are any joints that are springing. I don't want to be stripping this stuff off because it can be quite messy when you start getting polystyrene bits floating everywhere. But on the whole, this stuff should go on straight away. Trim it, cut it, get it on, and away you go. So I'll see you in a little while I get some of this on. Okay, right, we've got some on. Now, I'm going to say to you, as a professional, this is actually quite a crude way of applying a wall covering. You don't think of it like an ordinary paper that goes into corners and angles quite neatly and easily. This is a polystyrene. It will crack and break as you're moving it and trying to manipulate it into corners. Don't worry. But because it's got that, like a paper, let's call it a paper backing, it's got the liner over it, it will hold the polystyrene in place. So that is actually a good characteristic of it. Going back years, you used to get polystyrene on a roll and it didn't have I'm going to call it a paper backing. It used to be polystyrene on a roll and that used to break on you and used to go really brittle. So yeah, we've moved on from that. This is 4 mils thick. Now, just be mindful that if you have got skirting boards, you will be coming across the top edge of the skirting by at least 4 millimeters, depending on how deep your skirting is. Now, that is just one of those things, you can't really do much about it. So, never mind. Right, I've got a few lengths on now. What I've done, I've pasted the wall, put a liberal amount of paste on. And when I come to a second length, I also just brush down the edge, just so when that butts up against it, there is an adhesive element that's just helping it stick. Now, you'll feel it when you've got your spatula on. You'll feel whether there's any bubbles in it or not. It does actually squeegee and spatula quite nicely over that surface. So yeah, as I say, don't overthink it. It's not as hard as you actually might anticipate it being. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get another length on for you now so you can see what I actually do. Now, clearly just make sure you've got enough adhesive on because you need this to stick to the wall. And if your walls are a little bit wavy, you need to have that adhesion property here to help when you push it into place that it will actually stick. Now, all I've got is, just move that out of the way. All I've got is a decent medium pile roller. And I've got just a 2.5 inch that I'm just going to brush it on. Now, it does say in the instructions to put enough adhesive on for a roll of length that you're using, but I'm just going to be doing it for the length that I'm actually hanging because then I can work it for where I need to be in the room. I don't want to be doing a full wall all in one go. So all I'm doing is just brushing it on. Don't worry too much if you get any over the skirting boards or areas you don't want it because you can wipe it off with a sponge. I will say, just bear in mind that these widths are a lot shorter than a standard width of wallpaper, and the length is only 7.5 meters and not the standard 10.05 meters that you get on a lining paper. Can you just see that I'm just brushing down that edge? Now, as I said earlier, if you are using the fire rated lining papers, make sure you use the correct adhesive for both lots of hanging. So if you're hanging this, make sure you use the correct adhesive and the one that's going over the top. Literally hanging off the roll, just getting it up to the top. I'm only allowing a couple of, well, it's not even that, it might be half an inch overlap, so I'm not wasting too much. Bringing it down, button it up. Just going to get it into that crevice. I can roughly see where the line is, and as I said earlier, if there is gaps along there, you can fill it. It does cut very easy. Can you hear it cracking on me? Don't worry about that. I'm finding the top edge of the skirt in there, scoring it across, and then I'll get the cutting spatula, straight edge, and following that along. Simple as that. So I'm going to crack on. I'll see you at the end when I've done it, and we'll just give a little bit of a synopsis. Right, we're doing really well. We're cracking on. It's actually not too bad to put on, but like I said to you a little bit earlier, don't be too critical with how you're cutting it. It is one of those things that it goes where it wants to go. The sort of material does crack and flex like that when you're trying to get it into angles. But I just thought I'd show you how I'm doing a corner. I'm not really wasting anything. Anything that's coming off as a decent off-cut width, I'm saving because it fills in little strips down the side of next to full lengths. So that's what I've done. I've got a piece of a strip that came off one of these bigger drops, and it just fell in nicely. So I've got it in, butt jointed it, and putting a bit of paste on against the edge that it butt joints on. You don't need to do that, but I'm just finding it's making it stick nicely. And literally with my plastic spatula, squeegee, whatever you want to call it, I'm literally banging it in. Well, not banging it, but squeezing it into the angles, getting it all the way down. Now, it will bruise if you bang it, but that's the nature of the material. But you can see that angle there. I'm not a big fan to tell people to use one of these spatulas as your straight edge, but because it's a little bit thicker, I can squeeze in and then cut a bit better than, I'll say, my metal straight edge. Both are working fine, but this seems to be doing all right. What I don't like about using something like this, you only need to get your blade and cut into it and make a little bit of a chew mark cut on the plastic, and it can damage the papers that you're working over. But it does sand off. If you do need to get a little bit of sandpaper over it, you can get it down. But I'm just literally using that as a guide. That's all it is. It's not even to get a really nice straight edge. That's in already. There is a bit of a gap there, a natural gap with that material. But as I've been saying, you use something like a lightweight filler to fill any of those gaps that you've got from butting into, I'll call it butting into angles, or just actually cutting up against corners or drops down the sides. Hopefully that makes sense, but never mind. Right, crack on, onward and upward. What a good day I've had. I've done 9 rolls. 9 rolls of this insulation lining paper, and I'll pick it up because it's on the floor. It's taken as good as a tub of the adhesive. I would say there's probably about that much left in there. So yeah, don't brush it out. Don't put it on sparingly. Put plenty on, because you've got plenty in there to get a good amount of paste and adhesive onto this for when you come to actually hang it. So that's good. Just move you around because the light's a bit better. Right, there's no getting away from it. This does not cut with neat, sharp edges. So don't beat yourself up if you see jagged, messy edges when you start coming to actually cut down angles and things like that. If you come down these angles and you're doing your cuts, I'm trying to just get you some there that look a bit darker. That's to be accepted. Don't worry about it, because what I'm just going to show you now is what I've done on some of these corners up here. I don't know whether you can see it. Let's see if we can zoom in. Can you see? I've gone around with this. It's just the lightweight filler. You can use flexible fillers, you can use flexible corks, but I've just gone around neatly, just sharpening those edges up. Now, that's clearly what I'm going to be doing tomorrow, because this is going to dry overnight, and I'll get a little bit done today, this afternoon, and come tomorrow, I'll spend best part of a couple of hours just going around neatening all these edges up. But it is literally the lightweight filler. If you're one of these decorators that knows what one of these is, it's a putty knife. You can just get it on your putty knife, like so, and literally just go down the angle, put it in, like so, wipe it down, and then just face it off. Literally like that. That's all you need to do. And that will fill those holes and gaps where you've got cuts that aren't very good. Now, the other thing I want to mention is you can jigsaw puzzle it, if you know what I mean. You can put pieces in. So if I bring you up here where I've got pieces, because I didn't want to be wasting anything, I put a segment in there. I'll put a segment in there. I've not had to use a full width or a full length to actually drop in to get a butt joint. Just get it on. If you can see that you don't have to go all the way up to a, well, I'm just going to say that again. If you can see that you don't need to go all the way up to a top angle because there's something in the way, make it easy for yourself that you can put a little piece in. I've done it up here as well. I've put little pieces in. I've not done a full drop to get that on. Doesn't matter. The other thing I'll say, you can actually, well, I call the word splice. You can overlap it and cut through and get your joint that way. I've done that on the ceiling. Can you see there? Because just there was a narrow piece of about, should we say about 10 inches? But of course the width was wider than that, and I didn't want to be putting a full width on and then cutting a load off. What I ended up doing is hanging into that angle at the top, because this is obviously a beam. I've hung into the angle, brought it across to there, overlapped it, and then just put a sharp blade top to bottom, or I'll say from one side to the other. Make sure you've got a sharp blade. The alpha blades are very good. And I've cut through the 2 layers and then literally dropped it into place. So I dropped it into place on the ceiling, and pieces at the back of where the radiator are that you don't get a natural full width of drop. If it came up with a width like that, I just got some offcuts that were a little bit wider, and then actually cut it in and spliced it over, cut through, drop it in, pull the back off. Yeah, you know what I mean by splicing. But that's where we are now. That's where we are now. Couple of things I want to say. Thank you very much to all those that are buying me a coffee. Thanks for the people that are giving me super thanks below. It's much appreciated. Big kiss. 3 kisses. But no, tomorrow all I'm going to be doing is going around all these angles, neatening them all up. This isn't a finished paper, so you haven't got to worry too much. This is like a ground paper, because once we've got this on, you don't have to worry about the joints. We've got butt joints, you don't have to fill those, but I'm going to be hanging a non-woven fibre liner over the top, which I will be hanging, well, I will work it out that the joints don't correspond with any of the joints that are actually of this insulation. So that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. So that's where you'll get your neatness of hanging your finish lining paper. Again, butt joints with that. I don't want to hear anybody saying about leaving a gap and filling it, because your filler will be a different texture to what the actual paper is that you're trying to fill. And by the time you've sanded it, it leaves a sticky mess. I'm saying a sticky mess, it just leaves a mess. So you're always best to just get your butt joints on and then paint over it. If there is anything that just slightly overlaps, get your seam roller on, get them down. So while we're just talking about how you get this on, if you've got walls that are a little bit uneven and they go in and out, this is an area that the paper went on, and I could literally, I mean, it sounded hollow, and it was because the paper didn't want to go into the actual convex and concave, the concave part of the wall. Now what I've done, I've gone with a blade and I've literally scored it down to relieve that pressure actually of that area. Once those cuts were done, I could actually manipulate it into that shape of that concave area of that wall. And the same here, there was an area there that didn't really want to go down, so I've done a star cut. I've gone straight across. I did peel it back slightly to put a little bit more paste on it, and I've actually got that down as well, and that's a lot better. So don't be frightened to work this insulation polystyrene. Cut it as you need and get it down, because as I say, this actually has something going over the top of it. And if I can just show you, this is how rough. Can you see? This is how rough it can be on the corners, and that's why, as I showed you, you're going to be filling those. Don't worry too much about it. It's not easy to cut, to get a straight, neat cut into angles, but this is just the characteristic of the paper. I hope that me doing this actual insulation lining paper has helped a few people out. It's a very good product to actually increase the warmth, I would probably say, aid the warmth of a room, particularly if you've got cold external walls on single brick. So if there is any questions, please ask. I'm always available for messaging, and I try to answer as many people as I possibly can. So thank you very much for listening to me. There is videos at the end that might be of interest to you as well. So thank you very much.